Today is a very exciting day. We are back in the boatyard. We just arrived yesterday. So that means projects can really start to begin. And we're gonna kick it off with a big one. Literally. The rig. As we mentioned in our refit overview video, doing some work on the rig is pretty high priority for us for a few reasons. Number one, the boat, we've never actually had the rig out. Wow, it is windy today. We've never had the rig out ever since the rig was first put in, all the way back in France. So we've been told it's a little overdue to just kind of get things out, take a close look at everything. And number two, we definitely have some work on the rig that we need to do. The diagonal batten somehow managed to unscrew itself and gouged out some pretty deep marks into the track on the mast itself. So we have a new mast track that is here. We're going to be replacing that. We're going to be replacing some of the batten cars, the intermediate cars, and while the rig is down, about every 10 years or so, it's roughly suggested to do kind of a standing rigging replacement. So we're going to do the diamond stays, we're going to be replacing the head stay. We had redone the cap shrouds only a few years ago, so I'm not worried about those, but we're going to keep Starry Horizons for another 5 years-ish at least. So if we can get this done now while we're here in a place that can do it, just one less thing to worry about while we're out enjoying the boat. So in order to get the mast out, we have to undo a few things. Kind of down here at the base of the mast, that's where all the electrical wiring for the radar, the tricolor, the steaming light, our VHF antenna, all those things runs right down through there. So in order to disconnect those, I'm gonna have to jump down in the generator locker, undo all those connections. Just don't want all that stuff getting ripped apart when they're using a crane to pull the mast out. So let's jump on in there, get started with that. This box right there, that should be where all the electrical connections are. So if we look over here, there's a black conduit, kind of runs straight into this box. That comes over from the anchor locker, which that's where all the electrical connections come down. So I'm gonna open this up. Let's keep fingers crossed that's where everything is gonna be that I need to have access to. Well, as you can see, there's a fairly decent nest of wires in there. So the next step for me is going to be untangling all those, figuring out which one's which, and hope there aren't too many labels in French. Very happy to say, all done. I did do a little bit of kind of labeling of some wires, making sure I'll be able to figure out which ones connect to the others. When we put everything back in, a little bit of time now saves a lot of time later. So everything is disconnected. My part is done, getting the rig ready to come out. I'm gonna leave the wires all in here though, because the generator locker is the watertight locker. And just in case things rain, don't want to get in all nasty. But the day we pull the rig out, I'll jump in the anchor locker, pull everything through so that as the mast comes out, just nice and easy. It seems pretty likely that I'm going to be spending a lot of time here in the generator locker during this whole refit project. To start with, one of the biggest changes we're making is in here. Generator. That whole thing's got to come out. In order to do that, I got to get everything kind of out of this locker, starting with the watermaker. And that's probably a good thing actually, because we are going to be replacing the watermaker with a Schenker 12-volt unit. So got to get all this stuff out of the way so that the yard can then get the generator out. Now it might be a little tricky to tell, but there's a pretty significant lip from the deck. So that's why we're going to rely on the yard. Probably going to need a crane to actually get in, get this thing up and out of the boat. But at least I can get started on removing things myself. I think the tricky part of this is going to be figuring out how to get all of this stuff out without spilling too much water in here. Now, there is a little bit of residual water kind of left in here from the last time we used it. I think I'm going to try to do it kind of component by component. Start up here with the membranes, then maybe take this out, it's carbon filter. Then we'll work on all the electrical components. Then down here for high pressure pump, all that stuff. But try to do it by component where there's valves so that if I can keep things from spilling, we're going to try that. Feeling pretty good. We've got all of the equipment out of the generator locker for the watermaker. You don't quite realize just how many components there are until you're uninstalling everything. So it feels good to have this out. It definitely feels like there's more space in here. There are a few things left. There's a few wires and everything, like the fresh water line going from the watermaker to the water tanks is still in here. Some of those things I'm going to be able to reuse, so I don't want to move those just quite yet. But the next step in this process of getting this all ready is going to be getting all this stuff on this side out. Coolant, the fuel lines, the exhaust lines, all that stuff, that's got to come out. And those are tight spaces. I think the first step is going to be get the coolant bottle out, get the free fuel filter out, and then I can really show you guys just how tight it is back there. I have gotten a lot of stuff out of here. It's a little dark, maybe the camera will focus. The muffler used to be down there for the generator. The gas water separator, that's still up there, that's coming out now. And then all those cables, water, fuel, those kind of things, those got to come off today as well. Not only do all the mechanical components have to be disconnected from the generator, but we've got the battery here as well. And over the years, quite a few things have been tied into it, including there is a charge relay inside with our kind of lithium batteries, so that anytime the engine start battery is getting a charge, this also will. It was intended so that if we're not using the generator for a long time, this battery is not going to die on us and thus not be able to start the generator. But with the generator going, all that stuff got to get out of here as well. So I'm going to go disconnect that first thing, and then we can come down and disconnect all the stuff on the batteries. That wasn't too bad. We've got everything disconnected now. This was the engine battery side and the generator battery side. So we've got the generator cable down here, all nicely wrapped up, so hopefully no touching of anything. We'll go in the generator locker, disconnect the cable in there, and we'll have no live wires. Genset batteries all disconnected. Again, not too hard, just a whole lot of steps in this process to get the whole generator disconnected. I did do my absolute level best. Anything that had the even slightest potential of being a live wire, even though I know this isn't connected to anything, that's not connected to anything, and that's not connected to anything. Just in abundance of caution, everything's all wrapped up so that if there is any live wire, it's not going to be touching anything. So next, I'm not sure you're going to be able to see it back here. Yeah, there's a faint hint of red. That's where, let's see, that's where the generator start battery connection into the generator is. So we can go ahead and get that disconnected, get the cables out of here, all those other little like hose connections back there, get that all done. And then I'll worry about like the fuel lines, and we've got this here, our oil change pump. This is connected into the genset as well, so I needed to get that undone. Hopefully without making too much of a mess. The water, the exhaust, the fuel lines, they're all disconnected, so that's good, and not too much of a mess made, so that's even better. I did have to come up with a little bit of a solution for the fuel lines. There's a lot of corrosion back there, and I was just worried that the hose barbs that the fuel lines are connected to, I just was worried they weren't going to come out very easily, and I wanted to be able to plug up the generator so that when it comes out, it's gonna have to come out at an angle. So I don't want diesel spilling out. So what I've done is I've cut the fuel lines and have plugged them up. So they will not be leaking diesel as we get out, and it'll be a little easier to deal with things once the generator's out of the boat if we want. So that's all good. The next thing on this side of the engine, this is where all the AC cables come in for power. So there's definitely stickers, you know, danger, high voltage, don't kill yourself kind of thing. So that's what I'm going to tackle next. The electrical wiring disconnected, so we're getting really, really close. I still have to undo the oil line that runs to our oil change pump, so that one could be a little messy, but hopefully not too bad. And then because this thing is so big and the generator locker opening is not that huge, the yard has requested that I dismantle as much of the sound shield as possible. So I have to get that done. And then the very last thing is there are, I think, 4 bolts actually bolting this down into the shelf that it's on. So I gotta get those undone. The 2 up here, those are pretty easy to find, but the ones way in the back, that's gonna require some boat yoga. It looks just a little bit different back there. Got the entire sound cover is off. Every single connection is undone. The only thing that's left is, I believe, the 4 bolts down at the base holding this thing in. So I'm going to get those. I'm really hoping it's not going to be too much boat yoga getting over the other side. But once we get that, this thing's ready to come out. The bolts took pity on me after a long project and came out fairly easily. That meant I could transition to the next project on the to-do list. Getting an afternoon shower here in the boatyard, so it's perfect time to come inside and work on prepping the shore power frequency converter for getting off the boat. So we're down here, this is the owner's cabin, and this is underneath our berth back there. I'm going to take you in, show you a little bit closer. 3 different boxes. Those all have to come undone, unwired, so let's get after it.
Well, hey there, babe. How's it going?
Oi! Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Watch your head.
Don't do banging on things. Oi. Things are going good. This is all kinds of fun, just really small spaces. But I make good progress. 1 is done. Working on the second one. Testing everything, make sure there's no electrical AC power in here, because there's all kinds of, you know, dangerous voltages, stickers everywhere. So, I think we're doing okay.
Awesome.
Shore power converter disconnect project enters into day 2. So, to be fair, I have been kind of jumping back and forth between projects. Had some rain, all that fun stuff, so just making time as best we can. I should be able to get this finished today, though, and that's a good feeling. This big box, that's the only one that's left. But you can see there's a lot of big wires coming in. That's the engine room right behind us. So the wires come in from shore power, come into here, and then comes back out. So where it goes into the rest of the boat, charges the batteries, etc., etc. So I'm going to have to open this up. A lot of wires in there. This will be the fun one. Got the cover mostly off, so that's good. However, with all these wires in here, can't get the whole thing completely off yet. See if we can get a quick little peek. Looks like in here. Yeah, a bit dark, but there's a lot of wires, a lot of tight spaces. I think I'm ready to declare victory. All the wires are undone, disconnected. The bolts supporting the base, those are out as well. Required a little bit of boat yoga. It's a really cool, impressive piece of kit. Like there's a lot of electrical components in here. It is super complicated. Looking at it, I'm pretty amazed we didn't have more problems with it than we did. I think we had one breaker that we had to replace the entire 7.5 years we used it, so not too bad. But I'm going to have to put this all back together now, at least the outside frame, and then we're going to need like 4 guys to get this out, which is what it took to get in here. Because, oh my goodness, this thing is so heavy. The covers are all back on. It's ready for the guys to pull it out, which means I'm going to call this project done. That looks like the middle of a project up there, babe.
It is indeed the middle of a project. You're interrupting me.
Oh,
how dare you?
I'm so sorry, but we're kind of getting back in the habit of this whole filming thing, huh?
I know. We gotta remember to whip out the camera.
Yeah, so what are we doing here?
Today we are taking off the mainsail. Now, as we said, we're about halfway into this project, and what we've already done is we've taken off the lazy jacks. They are tied to the mast right here. We have taken off the battens, taken off the reef points, taken off the shackle at the gooseneck, and we have tightened up the forward stay so that the whole mast comes forward a little bit so that we can get the track car bit out, and we'll show you how that works in a second. What else did we do? What did I miss?
I think you got the most of it. Main halyard's off, right? We don't
Main
need that
halyard
anymore.
is off. Yep.
So, yeah, I think that's pretty solid. We'll try to capture removing a few more of these track cars here.
Absolutely. That's the tricky stuff anyways, so.
Our mast has a small removable section of track, and once that's out, we can use an even smaller batten car size piece of track to help remove all the cars. We go one by one, raising them up until they're fully onto the small section of track. This is a pretty delicate process, as the Z-Spar cars use ball bearings, and one slip can scatter them everywhere. We collect all the ball bearings in a container, but we do have some spares, and we have definitely needed them. Once all the track cars were off, it was time to get the main off the boat. This main was made of Dacron, which meant it was quite heavy, and neither of us really wanted to try and carry it down a ladder. So instead, I rigged up a hoist and we used our electric winch to do the hard work for us. Once it was all the way on the ground, we stored it away in our container, finished taking the stack pack off the boom, and got ready for one last round of rigging prep the next day. Alright, tomorrow we are pulling the rig off. So today we have got rigger to YouTubers extraordinaire, Mr. Tim Leary here, who's been helping us out. Tim, can you kind of explain just what we've been doing today to get everything ready to go?
Well, first thing we did is look at the turnbuckles, make sure they got a little grease on them, documented the positions.
That's important. We want to make sure we know where it goes back in, right?
So they're 565 on either side, and then on the head stay, since we're replacing it, I measured all the setbacks so we can make sure it fits, the new furler fits in that position. So looks like we're good.
So I see a bunch of lines at the mast.
So I pulled all the messengers, I pulled all the reef lines and the outhaul out of the boom because we're going to be servicing the boom. So that makes it a little easier not having all that stuff in there. And then what we did is I loosened the vertical pin, which is right there, so we can just pull the pin once they pick the boom, and then that goes away. Now the halyards, I just finished doing that, is I just brought them all back to the mast so we can get ready to pick the mast up tomorrow morning. So basically we're making everything skinny so we can lift it out of the boat.
Easy peasy, just up and out, right?
Well, we hope so.
Yeah.
Now the wires are down in here, which David disconnected. So someone has to feed them from that locker up through the mast step, and then
out we go.
out here. So, and then once we get it on the ground, that's when the fun begins.
So you're gonna get what, real intimate with that mast? Is that what you've been telling me?
Yeah, intimate with the mast. Yeah, you're going to get a nice list.
Perfect.
So
All right.
So one of the things I noticed is the shivs in this boom will probably, we decided we're going to replace all the shivs and the masthead, so that's a given. And then we'll just go from there, break it down and measure all for the new diamonds, and maybe change some light bulbs.
All the fun stuff, yeah?
Yeah. So.
Perfect. Well then, sounds like we're all ready for tomorrow.
Yes. Bring it on.